The Sun's magnetic defenses are cracking. Scientists around the world are watching in shock as an immense stream of superheated plasma tears through the star's corona. At precisely midnight on February 2, 2026, the solar surface erupted in a sequence no one had anticipated. Three massive solar flares, X8.1, X1.5, and X2.8, detonated from a single sunspot, active region 4366, all within the span of 1 hour. The first, the most powerful, released energy equivalent to billions of nuclear bombs, reaching Earth in just 8 minutes. Radio blackouts instantly struck the Pacific region, affecting Hawaii, Australia, and New Zealand, while dawn brought disturbances to parts of Asia. But these weren't random explosions. Scientists realized the sunspot was stockpiling energy, coiling magnetic fields like a loaded spring ready to snap. Its dense, compact structure made it particularly dangerous. Unlike ordinary sunspots, where energy is mostly released along the edges, active region 4366 had intense magnetic mixing at its center, allowing it to draw power from its entire structure. The result? Explosive potential far beyond what its size would suggest. Observatories noted another worrying feature. The flare sequence wasn't a single burst. Multiple energy spikes over a long duration indicated sustained magnetic reconnection. The triple flare appeared to be preparation, not culmination. NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory captured a massive coronal mass ejection hurtling into space at over 1 million miles per hour, billions of tons of plasma racing toward Earth. Trajectory analysis suggested a partial relief. The bulk of the plasma wasn't directly aimed at our planet. But even near misses carry danger. Shock waves from such eruptions expand in all directions, capable of inducing geomagnetic storms, satellite damage, and widespread disruption. By the time the first X-class flare peaked, radio communication failures swept across half the globe. Airlines, ships, and emergency services scrambled. The blackout was classified R3, significant but not catastrophic, yet its duration was unusual. Most flares fade in minutes. This one persisted for over 24 hours. The sun's message was clear. This was only the beginning. High above Earth, the International Space Station monitored the storm. Astronauts prepared radiation shelters. On the planet below, scientists warned of the incoming radiation surge, while millions remained unaware of the invisible storm hurtling toward them. The sun had awoken from a deep slumber. Its magnetic fury was far from spent. Somewhere in the darkness between Earth and the star, billions of tons of plasma raced toward a vulnerable, interconnected world. And humanity had only hours to brace for what could come next. By the early hours of February 2, 2026, the first signs of the sun's assault began to ripple across Earth. The massive X8.1 flare had already struck the upper atmosphere, triggering radio blackouts across the Pacific, but the planet was only beginning to feel the full force of active region 4360's excess power. Space weather monitoring stations reported that billions of tons of plasma were racing toward Earth at speeds exceeding 1 million miles per hour. Shockwaves, invisible yet immense, pressed against the magnetosphere, sending charged particles spiraling toward the poles. Auroras ignited at unusually low latitudes, green, red, and violet lights dancing across the skies of the northern United States, southern Canada, and even parts of Europe. Air traffic immediately became chaotic. Commercial flights crossing the Pacific lost high-frequency radio contact. Pilots switched to backup channels, but the disruption was widespread. Ships in the same region reported degraded communication. Coast Guard operations struggled to maintain coordination. The NOAA issued continuous alerts, reminding emergency services that the blackouts were far from temporary. Meanwhile, the triple X-class flare sequence was just the beginning. Solar observatories noted persistent magnetic instability in active region 4366. Each flare had released enormous energy, yet the sunspot remained magnetically charged. Scientists warned that additional eruptions could occur at any moment, each potentially stronger than the last. The radiation storm, classified at least S2, threatened high-altitude flights and sensitive electronics. Astronauts aboard the ISS retreated to shielded areas, while airlines rerouted polar flights to lower latitudes to reduce exposure. Even implanted medical devices, like pacemakers, were at risk from the intense particle flux streaming from the sun. But the most serious threat wasn't the visible auroras or temporary communication failures. It was the geomagnetic storm that could cripple modern civilization. The shock waves interacting with Earth's magnetic field induced electric currents in the ground. Long conductors, like power transmission lines, carried these currents, overheating transformers. In the worst-case scenario, entire sections of the power grid could fail simultaneously, cascading across continents. Historically, such events are rare. The Carrington event of 1859 had been catastrophic for telegraph systems. Today, the same level of solar fury could paralyze satellites, disrupt GPS navigation, crash stock markets, and halt essential services. Scientists calculated that the probability of a Carrington-class storm had jumped sharply after the triple flare sequence. Meanwhile, on the ground, emergency managers began coordinating preparedness measures. Backup power systems were tested. Communication plans were reviewed. Citizens were advised to check supplies. But with billions of tons of plasma hurtling toward Earth, uncertainty remained the only certainty. As Earth waited, the Sun continued to churn. Active region 4366, still compact yet incredibly dense, held more energy than most predicted possible. The triple flare was not an anomaly, it was a warning shot. And the question that haunted scientists, emergency planners, and governments alike was simple yet terrifying. Had the main event already begun, or was the worst still to come? The countdown had started. The storm was no longer above Earth, it was on its way, and humanity's fragile technological civilization faced a test unlike any before.
It starts with a flicker, a barely noticeable tremor in the city lights, a brief stutter in the live TV broadcast. Most people don't even register it. On a Tuesday afternoon, life is too busy for minor electrical hiccups. But somewhere, in a darkened room filled with monitors, a scientist's blood runs cold. The data streams are screaming a silent, terrifying alarm. A coronal mass ejection, or CME, has just erupted from the Sun. It's big, incomprehensibly big, and it's aimed directly at Earth. Within hours, the news breaks. At first, it's just another headline, something to scroll past on your phone. Major solar storm incoming, it reads. Experts are quoted, using terms like Carrington-level event and geomagnetic disturbance. They try to explain it in simple terms. A massive cloud of magnetized plasma is hurtling towards us at millions of miles per hour. Days say to expect some power outages, maybe some satellite disruptions. They say not to panic, but the urgency in their voices betrays their calm words. This isn't just another storm. The first 24 hours are an eerie countdown. People start to pay attention. They see footage of the Sun from NASA's solar observatories, a violent, beautiful explosion of light and energy. The stock market wobbles. People rush to grocery stores, grabbing water, canned goods, and batteries. There's a nervous energy in the air, a collective holding of breath. Is this the real deal, or just another overhyped Y2K? Then, it hits. It doesn't arrive with a bang or a crash, it arrives with silence. One moment, the world is a symphony of electric hums, buzzing lights, and digital chatter. The next, it's all gone. The lights don't just flicker, they die. Your phone screen goes black. The internet vanishes. The silence is sudden, profound, and terrifying. Out in the streets, chaos begins to bubble. Traffic lights are dead, causing immediate gridlock. Cars with modern electronic ignitions won't start. The world, which ran on a delicate web of electricity, has been unplugged. In the first few hours, people are confused, disoriented. They try their phones again and again, a useless ritual. They gather on sidewalks, looking up at the darkened skyscrapers, their faces illuminated only by the fading daylight. As night falls, a new kind of beauty and terror descends. With no light pollution, the sky is ablaze with stars, more than most city dwellers have ever seen. But this celestial wonder is painted over with something else, the aurora. Not the gentle dancing lights of the Arctic, but a violent, global spectacle. Shimmering curtains of green, purple, and blood-red light writhe across the entire sky, from pole to pole. It's a breathtakingly beautiful sign of the apocalypse. It's the Earth's magnetic field being torn apart. Day 2. The initial confusion curdles into fear. The silence is no longer novel. It's oppressive. No news, no communication, no connection to the outside world. The only sources of information are rumors, spreading like wildfire from neighbor to neighbor. The power grid is fried, someone says. It could be months, maybe years, before it's back. I heard the transformers are all blown. They don't make spares for those anymore. The infrastructure of modern life crumbles with shocking speed. Without electricity, water pumps fail. Taps run dry. Sanitation systems break down. The convenience of turning a faucet is replaced by the desperate search for clean water. People line up at rivers and ponds, a scene from a history book suddenly brought to life. Hospitals are thrown into a nightmare. Backup generators, designed for short outages, quickly run out of fuel. Life support machines go silent. Doctors and nurses work by flashlight, performing medical miracles with 19th century technology. The most vulnerable, the elderly, the sick, the infants are the first to suffer. By the end of the first week, society has fractured. In some communities, people band together. Neighbors pool resources, share food, and set up watches to protect their streets. They rediscover the skills of their grandparents, how to preserve food without a refrigerator, how to find their way by the stars, how to simply talk to one another face. A new, fragile kind of community is born from the ashes of the old one. But in other places, the darker side of human nature takes over. Desperation breeds violence. Stores are looted, not just for food, but for anything of value. Without law enforcement able to communicate or coordinate, cities become dangerous frontiers. The trust that holds society together evaporates. Your neighbor is no longer just your neighbor. They are a competitor for scarce resources. Months pass, the world is unrecognizable. The global economy, a complex digital construct, has simply ceased to exist. Money is worthless. Food, water, medicine, batteries, and skills are the new currency. People who were once CEOs and software engineers find themselves helpless, while farmers, mechanics, and nurses become the new royalty. The knowledge stored in our digital libraries, the sum of human history and science, is trapped behind dead screens, inaccessible. We have been thrown back into a dark age, armed only with what we can remember. Governments struggle to maintain control. Without long-range communication, they are effectively blind and deaf. Martial law is declared in some areas, but it's impossible to enforce on a large scale. The world has broken down into a patchwork of isolated towns, fortified communities, and lawless zones. And yet, life goes on. People adapt. They learn to live by the sun and the seasons again. They plant gardens in city parks. They rig up makeshift power solutions with old car batteries and solar panels scavenged from road signs. Children are born into this new world, a world without screens, a world where stories are told around a campfire instead of streamed on a tablet. For them, this is normal. The great solar storm of our time was not an extinction event. It didn't wipe out humanity with fire or flood. It simply turned off the switch. It showed us how fragile our glittering technological civilization truly was. It revealed that for all our advancements, we were only ever a single solar flare away from darkness. The recovery, if it ever comes, will take generations. We will have to rebuild, not just our power grids, but our entire world, from the ground up. The story of the storm will be passed down, a cautionary tale whispered in the quiet of a world without electricity. 2. It will be a reminder of the day the sun reached out and touched us, reminding us of our place in the cosmos. Not as masters of our world, but as inhabitants of a small, beautiful and vulnerable planet, orbiting a powerful and unpredictable star. Thanks for watching. If you found this story thought-provoking, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the what-ifs that shape our world. Stay curious.
In the early hours of February 3, 2026, the world held its breath. Active region 4366, still fully magnetically charged, had begun releasing energy at an unprecedented scale. Scientists monitoring solar data noticed the telltale signs: a sudden spike in X-ray flux, intense magnetic reconnection at the sunspot's core, and an unmistakable acceleration of plasma along its coronal loops. Then it happened. A monstrous X50 class flare detonated, hundreds of times more powerful than the initial X8.1 burst. Billions of tons of superheated plasma erupted into space, directly aimed at Earth. The shockwave raced across the solar system at millions of miles per hour, carrying with it an invisible torrent of charged particles. Within minutes, the first warning systems detected the approach of the geomagnetic storm. Power grids began to fail almost immediately. Transformers overloaded and exploded in a chain reaction. Entire cities lost electricity as cascading blackouts spread continent by continent. Backup generators struggled, but the surge was relentless. Satellites experienced catastrophic failures. GPS signals vanished, leaving aviation, shipping, and military operations blind. Communication satellites flickered and died, disrupting mobile networks, internet connectivity, and television broadcasts worldwide. Stock exchanges were paralyzed. Banking systems reliant on precise GPS timing risked massive errors in transactions. The radiation storm hit Earth's upper atmosphere with unprecedented intensity. Astronauts aboard the ISS retreated to heavily shielded compartments as particle detectors recorded the most extreme solar storm in modern history. High-altitude flights faced radiation exposure levels exceeding safety limits. Hospitals monitored sensitive electronics and medical devices, bracing for malfunctions. Auroras erupted across continents in vivid, eerie colors, visible as far south as the equator. While spectacular to the human eye, they were the physical manifestation of chaos, a visual signature of Earth's magnetic field being torn and stretched by the incoming plasma. Infrastructure failures multiplied. Pipelines experienced accelerated corrosion from geomagnetically induced currents. Electric vehicle networks faltered. Water treatment and food distribution systems faced severe disruptions. Every sector dependent on electricity or satellite technology was under siege simultaneously. Scientists, tracking the storm in real time, knew this flare could last hours, with aftershocks continuing for days. Emergency services were overwhelmed, forced to prioritize life-saving operations while most of the world experienced technological blackout. The sheer scale of the event confirmed the worst fears. The triple X-class flare sequence from February 2nd had been prelude, and the X50 flare was the main event. Humanity had never faced a natural phenomenon of this magnitude in the era of modern technology. As night fell across the northern hemisphere, cities were plunged into darkness. Satellites drifted inert in orbit. Power grids struggled to reboot. Radio silence enveloped vast regions. The sun, billions of miles away, had delivered a direct strike, a cosmic reminder that the balance between civilization and nature is fragile, and the fury of the universe is unstoppable.
In the early hours of February 3, 2026, the world held its breath. Active region 4366, still fully magnetically charged, had begun releasing energy at an unprecedented scale. Scientists monitoring solar data noticed the telltale signs: a sudden spike in X-ray flux, intense magnetic reconnection at the sunspot's core, and an unmistakable acceleration of plasma along its coronal loops. Then, it happened. A monstrous X50 class flare detonated, hundreds of times more powerful than the initial X8.1 burst. Billions of tons of superheated plasma erupted into space, directly aimed at Earth. The shockwave raced across the solar system at millions of miles per hour, carrying with it an invisible torrent of charged particles. Within minutes, the first warning systems detected the approach of the geomagnetic storm. Power grids began to fail almost immediately. Transformers overloaded and exploded in a chain reaction. Entire cities lost electricity as cascading blackouts spread continent by continent. Backup generators struggled, but the surge was relentless. Satellites experienced catastrophic failures. GPS signals vanished, leaving aviation, shipping, and military operations blind. Communication satellites flickered and died, disrupting mobile networks, internet connectivity, and television broadcasts worldwide. Stock exchanges were paralyzed. Banking systems reliant on precise GPS timing risked massive errors in transactions. The radiation storm hit Earth's upper atmosphere with unprecedented intensity. Astronauts aboard the ISS retreated to heavily shielded compartments as particle detectors recorded the most extreme solar storm in modern history. Two flights faced radiation exposure levels exceeding safety limits. Hospitals monitored sensitive electronics and medical devices, bracing for malfunctions. Auroras erupted across continents in vivid, eerie colors, visible as far south as the equator. While spectacular to the human eye, they were the physical manifestation of chaos, a visual signature of Earth's magnetic field being torn and stretched by the incoming plasma. Infrastructure failures multiplied. Pipelines experienced accelerated corrosion from geomagnetically induced currents. Electric vehicle networks faltered. Water treatment and food distribution systems faced severe disruptions. Every sector dependent on electricity or satellite technology was under siege simultaneously. Scientists, tracking the storm in real time, knew this flare could last hours, with aftershocks continuing for days. Emergency services were overwhelmed, forced to prioritize life-saving operations, while most of the world experienced technological blackout. The sheer scale of the event confirmed the worst fears. The triple X-class flare sequence from February 2nd had been prelude, and the X50 flare was the main event. Humanity had never faced a natural phenomenon of this magnitude in the era of modern technology. As night fell across the northern hemisphere, cities were plunged into darkness. Satellites drifted inert in orbit. Power grids struggled to reboot. Radio silence enveloped vast regions. The sun, billions of miles away, had delivered a direct strike. A cosmic reminder that the balance between civilization and nature is fragile, and the fury of the universe is unstoppable.
By February 3, 2026, the X50 class flare from active region 4366 had reached full effect. Across continents, civilization teetered on the edge. Power grids collapsed in waves, leaving millions without electricity. Cities that once thrived under neon lights were plunged into darkness, their infrastructure paralyzed. Satellites, the backbone of global communication, were heavily damaged. GPS systems failed completely. Airlines grounded flights, and shipping routes became perilous without accurate navigation. Military and emergency services scrambled, forced to rely on outdated communication methods. Banking systems faltered as precise timing signals disappeared, threatening financial chaos worldwide. Radiation levels in the upper atmosphere soared. High-altitude flights were rerouted to lower latitudes, but even there, crews and passengers faced elevated exposure. Astronauts aboard the ISS remained in shielding, monitoring the proton storm that showed no sign of weakening. Hospitals struggled as electronic medical equipment became unreliable, and backup systems were taxed to their limits. The auroras, once a spectacle, were now a warning painted across the skies, green, red, and violet streaks stretching to latitudes normally untouched by such displays. Geomagnetically induced currents surged through pipelines, railways, and transmission lines, overloading systems and causing mechanical failures. Electric vehicle networks faltered, water treatment plants faced blackouts, and critical infrastructure trembled under the invisible force of the solar storm. Emergency management teams coordinated frantically, but the sheer scale of the catastrophe made localized responses almost irrelevant. Interconnected systems amplified the damage, turning single points of failure into cascading collapses across entire regions. People became increasingly aware of the fragility of modern technology, as communication, transportation, and utilities faltered simultaneously. Scientists warned that this storm would not end quickly. The main plasma wave continued to buffet Earth's magnetosphere, and aftershocks from the sunspot's continuing activity could extend the disaster for days. Predictions were uncertain. The magnetic polarity, plasma density, and trajectory all determined how severe the next pulses would be. For the first time in modern history, humanity faced a natural event that could disrupt every aspect of civilization simultaneously. From finance to energy, communication to transportation, the world's dependence on fragile technology was laid bare. The sun had not just sent a warning, it had begun to demonstrate the full scope of its power. Even in the chaos, scientists, engineers, and emergency responders continued their work. Tracking satellites, stabilizing power grids where possible, and communicating warnings through the few operational channels, they became humanity's last line of defense. Yet despite all precautions, one reality was undeniable. Earth was at the mercy of the sun, and the full magnitude of the storm was only beginning to be understood.
By February 4, 2026, the world began to reckon with the first true impacts of active region 4366's assault. Power grids were partially restored in some regions, but many areas remained in darkness. Satellite operators assessed the damage. Communication arrays, GPS systems, and weather satellites had suffered permanent or semi-permanent failures. Transportation remained chaotic. Airlines were grounded or rerouted. Shipping vessels relied on backup navigation systems, and rail networks struggled with disrupted signaling. Cities slowly adapted to the blackout, relying on generators and manual systems to maintain essential services. Hospitals operated in triage mode, prioritizing life-saving care while electronic equipment malfunctioned. Financial systems teetered as stock markets tried to resume operations. Banking networks, dependent on satellite timing, faced persistent errors. The global economy had been shaken, and analysts estimated that billions of dollars in losses were already accumulating, with long-term effects likely to last years. The radiation storm had begun to subside, but residual particle flux remained a concern for aviation, space operations, and sensitive electronics. Astronauts on the ISS continued to monitor levels closely, ensuring they remained in shielded compartments until the environment stabilized. Auroras persisted across unusually low latitudes, a vivid reminder of the invisible chaos that had swept across the planet. While beautiful, these lights were a warning. The sun was still active, and active region 4366 had not yet released all of its stored energy. Scientists emphasized that the global emergency was not over. The sunspot's magnetic structure remained intact, continuing to accumulate and redistribute energy. Models indicated that additional eruptions were possible, with even stronger flares capable of causing further geomagnetic storms, radiation surges, and infrastructure failures. Emergency management and governments around the world began long-term planning. Backup power systems were expanded. Critical infrastructure power grids, pipelines, satellites underwent rapid assessment and fortification where possible. Communities were advised to remain vigilant, with supply chains and communication systems remaining fragile. The first wave of chaos had exposed the vulnerability of modern civilization, spilled the interconnected systems that define daily life. Electricity, communication, navigation, finance, and transportation had proven fragile against the sun's fury. Humanity had survived the immediate threat, but the lesson was clear. The sun could strike again at any moment, and civilization must be prepared. Six-day active region 4366 continued to churn on the sun's surface. A compact yet extraordinarily powerful sunspot, still capable of generating unprecedented flares. Scientists and emergency planners knew one truth: the sun's story was far from over, and the next eruption could change life on Earth in ways humanity had yet to imagine. By February 5, 2026, the world had survived the first and most powerful assault from active region 4366, but the sun's threat remained far from neutralized. Scientists monitored the sunspot around the clock. Its magnetic structure, compact yet extraordinarily dense, continued to pulse with energy. Every flare, every burst of plasma had left its mark, but the sun had more power to unleash. Global infrastructure was partially restored, but humanity now knew how vulnerable it truly was. Satellites had been damaged or lost, GPS signals remained erratic, and power grids were fragile. Financial systems had resumed operations. But analysts predicted months of instability as backup systems compensated for damaged networks. Despite the recovery, governments and emergency agencies kept citizens on high alert. The auroras continued to dance across low latitudes, a silent warning of the invisible storm above. Scientists warned that active region 4366 could still erupt again, potentially releasing energy far greater than what had already struck Earth. Across observatories worldwide, teams studied the sunspot's evolving magnetic patterns. They noted signs of stabilization, but nothing about active region 4366 could be considered predictable. Every calculation, every simulation emphasized one truth: humanity had survived by a narrow margin, and the sun could strike again with even more catastrophic force. For the first time, the planet collectively recognized its fragility. Modern civilization, built on interconnected technology, had come face to face with forces beyond its control. Yet, amid the chaos, there was also resilience. Engineers repaired transformers, satellites were rerouted or replaced, and emergency systems were strengthened. Humanity had been tested and had adapted under pressure. In the skies above, active region 4366 glowed ominously, still alive, still powerful. Scientists described it as a coiled spring, capable of releasing unimaginable energy. Humanity had been given a warning, a glimpse of the sun's full potential, and an unprecedented opportunity to prepare. The sun had roared, the earth had trembled, and civilization had endured, but the final chapter was unwritten. Active region 4366 remained a celestial sentinel, a reminder that the universe is vast, unpredictable, and indifferent to human limits. And as billions looked up at the auroras painting the night sky, one thought lingered. The sun had spoken, and humanity had listened.